Hi everyone, welcome to the Communication and Conflict YouTube channel promoting mindful communication growth through conflict. So today's video is about what I describe as the circle of perception which can exist around any particular difficult situation or unresolved conflict, and how the idea and the visualizing of it as an idea can be very useful in both understanding why things can be very stuck or feel very stuck in a difficult situation, but also it can illustrate how there are opportunities within any given situation. So it can help, hopefully, to help there to be a shift in how things are approached, and to see how it is that by doing that, any stuck situation, any unresolved conflict can actually be an opportunity for learning and change and growth, rather than have to remain stuck and entrenched and possibly even escalate. So without further ado, here we have the circle of perception. So I want to talk about the idea or the concept of a circle of perception about any particular situation, and obviously of relevance to communication and conflict resolution. Any situation where there's some kind of unresolved conflict existing. And I want to use this idea to explain both the ways in which situations like this can remain stuck, but also how, by understanding the idea of a circle of perception, it can help to resolve the situation. And when I say resolve the situation, it's not necessarily always about everybody coming to agreement. It's about people coming to acceptance of different perspectives existing, but without having to make that a kind of a war or a battle, but actually a useful thing to recognize. So one of the things that I often talk about is the idea that conflict resolution has to be about agreement. It doesn't have to be about agreement. It can be just as much about acceptance that there are different views, and they may not be views that we agree with. But the question then is of whether we're trying to make other people see things the way we see things, or we can use the fact that they see things differently as a useful, in a sense, source of new insights to things. So I want to try to go through the idea of this circle of perception and how that can be possible when we look at things in this way, or we conceptualize a conflict situation in this way. So in this diagram, I've just drawn this, pretty random abstract thing in the center to represent any situation that two or more people have fallen out over. So it's deliberately abstract so that then you can decide what this situation might be for you. So for you, it might be a problem at work. It might be something like a bullying allegation. It might be a project that you disagree with other people about. It could be the way that people are conducting themselves that you find, isn't how you'd want it to be. It could be about something like whether people should wear masks to do with COVID, or shouldn't wear masks, depending on your perspective. It could be anything. It could be about your perspective of your neighbour over the noise that they make when playing music, or whatever. It's any situation that you have a difficulty over. And the distinction I'm going to ask you to make is between this as the situation and this as the people looking in on the situation. So this might be you, this person here, this might be you, the other person and their perspective looking in on it here. But the distinction is between the situation that you're both looking in on and you as the perceiver of it on the outside, so that then we can start to look at why things can get stuck in such situations. So, for example, if we take this as the example, so it's a black frame with red in the middle. So this is this person's view or opinion about this thing in the middle. So they're seeing this black background and something red in the middle. So it's a black frame with red in the middle. Now this person says, it's a black frame, yes, but it's yellow in the middle. Are you colorblind? what are you talking about? There's no red there, because they only see the yellow. They don't see the red on the other side from this person's perspective, and vice versa. This person doesn't see the yellow. And then this person's looking in on both of them thinking, what is wrong with you both? It's 3 vertical lines, red, black and yellow. So they're looking from this perspective. But they're all looking at the same thing. They're all looking at the same thing, but they're all looking at it from different perspectives. Now, there's the perspective, there's the visual aspect of it, of what people are looking in on, but I'm calling it the circle of perception. Because for me, the important thing to recognize is it's not just what we look in on and see with our eyes. It's also how we perceive the situation, how we feel about it, how we think about it, what we think the meanings are to these different things. So for me, it's beyond just what the perspective is, it's the perception of it as well. So you might even have 2 people standing from this position where this person is here, looking in, but they actually feel very differently about it. So even if they see the same thing, they could feel very differently about it. One person may hate orange and be repelled by, yellow and be repelled by it. And this person may love yellow, but they're both looking at the same thing. But they might still even perceive it in a different way. So it goes beyond just what we look in on. It's also how we're influenced by how we feel about particular things. Now, the thing is that what this can mean is that we can become very kind of determined that our view is the correct view, and that any other perspective must be wrong in some way, because it's obvious it's yellow with a black background. So how can anybody see red in that? There's something, obviously got to be something wrong with these people. They must be colorblind. Now, you might be able to see that that's exactly the same kind of thing that this person could see and say, well, what on earth could mean that that person can see yellow in this? It's red. They must be colorblind. So we start to get these kind of demonizations and criticisms of the other person, rather than an acknowledgement that we're all standing in a different place on the circle of perception about this thing in the middle. Now, this thing in the middle, I'm going to ask you to consider what that might be for you. Obviously, it's not going to be, well, it's very unlikely to be a red line, a black line, and a yellow line, or in a 3-dimensional thing, a kind of 3 screens of those colours. But what is it for you? Is it a bullying allegation, either made by you about somebody else or made about you by somebody else? Is it your views on masks to do with COVID? Everybody should wear a mask. People shouldn't have to wear masks, etc. Is it a view about climate change? Yes, climate change is an impending, problem. We've really got to do something about it. I think climate change is all a load of kerfuffle made to, for people to make money out of, etc. Or it could be a difference between you as 2 neighbours looking at a problem, maybe about a fence that you share or a tree that hangs over from one side to the other. It could be anything. It could be a difficulty within a family, over anything. It could be, somebody's ill within the family and you have different views about, auntie should be placed in a home. No, auntie should be cared for at home so that she feels close to the people that she loves. So there's all these different things that there are different perspectives on, but at the end of the day, we're all talking about the same thing in the middle. So that's the distinction I want you to try to hold in your mind as I go through this. So in this concept of the circle of perception, it's very likely to lead to a stuckness and potentially a war or a battle, because if you consider how these perspectives are being and perceptions are being expressed, so it is a black frame with red in the middle. It is a black frame, but it's yellow in the middle. Are you colorblind? So a non-acceptance of different perspectives on things and also different perceptions of it, different feelings about it. And what's wrong with you both? It's three vertical lines. So all three of these people are taking very fixed positions about what it is they see in the middle. And if it becomes a kind of an unresolved conflict, what's going to happen is this person is going to say, it's yellow, what's wrong with you? And they're going to try to drag this person round the circle to get them to see that they're right and they're wrong. And similarly, this person is going to try to drag this one round the circle until they see that they're right, that look, it's obvious, it's red. And so they're just going to be locked in this tug of war round the circle. All the time, this thing in the middle stays as red there, black there, yellow there, but an unwillingness on both parts to see that both aspects exist, or all aspects exist, because there's this third one as well. They're not going to agree with this third person. They're going to say, well, this one's completely crazy. He or she's seeing three lines. So this is where things remain unresolved, because people are trying to drag each other to their own position on the circle, rather than have a curiosity or interest in. Now, some people may say, oh yeah, wouldn't it all be nice if everybody had curiosity? What I'm talking about here is whether people want to resolve their experience of this conflict. So it's not about being nice. It's about being more constructive and useful. We may hate to think that the other person's perspective has any validity, but nevertheless, however much we detest that they might see it that way, the fact of the matter is they're saying they see it that way. And it's very unlikely they're lying about it. And we might ascribe, oh, you're only saying that because you want to make money out of it. Oh, you're only saying it because you're some kind of, you're some kind of conspiracy theorist, idealist, or whatever. So there'll be all these ascription of motivations which are negative and malicious. But whatever they are, they're not acknowledging that the situation is as it is, and that there are different perceptions of it. Different perceptions from different positions on this circle of perception on the outside. And so everything remains stuck. And we can see on a kind of an international scale, there are things that are very stuck at the moment and very rigid. And even on a local scale, the chances are that you will see similar things. And this has always been the case. There's nothing new about this. Conflict exists, it always exists. But the only thing that matters really for our own kind of benefit is how we respond to that conflict. And so I just want to set the kind of the scene for why such situations become stuck in the first place, and how at the end of the day it's nothing to do with the issue itself. It's about how we respond to the fact that other people have a different perception of this thing that we're both or all looking in on. So as you see, there's a second version of this image that I've put up here, which is about a more constructive way of dealing with the situation. And again, when I say more constructive, I mean more constructive for us. Often in issues of conflict resolution, people can say, yeah, but what if they don't this? Or yeah, but what if they... What I would say is it's not about concerning ourselves with what other people do. It's about what optimizes things for us in a situation. We may say there's no point talking to them. They're all idiots. They're all, whatever. But the fact of the matter is they have a perspective that, as far as we're able to try to understand it, it gives us more information to help us with our situation. Whether we end up being friends with these other people or not is not the point of what I'm saying. At the end of the day, it can make it more likely that that's possible. But as I say, that's certainly not my intention about what it is that I'm looking at here. one of the difficulties sometimes with the portrayal of mediation is it can be suggested to be about everybody being nicey, and that may never happen in a situation, but it doesn't mean to say we can't resolve the conflict from our perspective about what it is that we're struggling with. So I want to look at this different approach to the same situation that allows for a focus on the issue rather than on each other, than on the other people who see things differently. So just to start with, okay, I see a black frame with red in the middle. What do you see? Now let's just consider that statement compared to it's a black frame with red in the middle. Now this one is suggesting it's a fact. There's no other perception that is acceptable about this thing, and so therefore why would I care how anybody else would see it, because it's obvious it's a black frame with red in the middle. This one is saying this is how I see it. I see a black frame with red in the middle. What do you see? So not only is it saying, acknowledging that this is my perception from this angle, it's acknowledging that there exists another perception, that there will inevitably be other perceptions of the thing that we're looking in on. Now the second we can make that shift, first of all, it means we're not going to be as likely to be as at war with somebody else over things, but it means we're open to the fact that this thing is not just a kind of a two-dimensional view that we're seeing, that there's an infinite number of ways of looking at this situation. So there's so much more we can learn about the thing that we're looking in on simply by changing how we approach the situation. So okay, I see, from my perception on this circle, a black frame with red in the middle. What do you see? So immediately it's not in a sense dictating what the situation is to this person. It's acknowledging that that's my perspective, and also showing a curiosity about the other person's perspective. Whether we like them, dislike them, is nothing to do with what I'm talking about here. It's about me wanting to learn the most about this situation that I'm presently having a struggle with. So what do you see? I see a black frame, but I see yellow in the middle. Interesting. So instead of us dictating what it is, we're inviting other perspectives. And this person is noting, well, isn't that interesting? I see yellow in the middle, but you said you see red. Now they may want to, stick with the fact it's yellow and still say there's something wrong with you. But at least you've invited their perspective without setting a battle in place straight away. So you're already learning that this thing is not just black with red in the middle. You're hearing that there's a different perspective that's yellow in the middle, and you're not going to war over it. You're not saying, well, I'm right and you're wrong. You're learning that there's more to this situation than just red here and yellow there. And if we take it to a more real situation, it can be, well, I see what you're doing as bullying behaviour. How do you see it? Well, I see it as me trying to manage you because you're not doing as I would expect. Interesting. Now, I want to let that sink in, because very few people, if they're feeling bullied, are going to have that curiosity about how the other person sees it. And similarly, from the other perspective, well, I see you're not doing your work properly. How do you see it? Well, I see you as bullying me. Now, that's a discussion. It's not simply a war. Even though it's over a very difficult topic, it's about acknowledging that there's a different perspective on things, rather than you are a bully, no, you're just trying to get away with not doing your job properly, or whatever the context is. Everybody should wear masks is what I think. How do you see it? Well, I don't think everybody should wear masks. Interesting. So then a discussion can ensue about why there are the different views, rather than, well, everybody should wear masks and you're wrong. No, everybody shouldn't wear masks and you're wrong. And it stays stuck. So there's no discussion. It's just a spear throwing exercise, or tug of war, as I've said it. trying to drag people to our perspective because we think their view is wrong. And thirdly, I see 3 vertical lines, red, black, and yellow. Now, it may well be that this person feels a little bit more inclined to get involved in this very polarized discussion here because there's an openness to hearing other perspectives. Whereas when things are very stuck, some people may say, I think they're both mad, I'm just going to stay out of it. I see it very differently to both of them. I can't relate to what they're talking about, so I'm just staying out of it. It's nothing to do with me. They can fight it out by themselves. But in this situation, because there's a curiosity about it, other views, other people's views, or other people are perhaps more likely to want to get involved in the discussion and say, well, that's really interesting because I see something different to both of you. So there's actually a lot more to this that we can learn. Now, what I'm just going to ask you to do is consider with any difficult situation that you're experiencing, any situation. As I say, it could be within your family, it could be at work, it could be in society in general. To what extent do you feel you're taking this kind of very fixed position? And to what extent are you taking this position, these kinds of approaches to things where you however much you might hate the idea that these other views might exist, that you're still expressing and having a curiosity about it because it's in your interests. It's in your interest to try to understand that there's more to this situation than just how you see it. Now, one is about saying, I am right and you are wrong, or in this diagram more appropriately, I'm right and you're wrong. And if you don't see it how I am, there must be something wrong with you. You're colorblind. There's something crazy about you. You've got a malicious motivation. There's something wrong with you for seeing it as you see it. This one is not getting involved in the things we might think about the other person. It's about however much I might not like to hear that there's a different view of this situation, I wonder what that view is. I wonder what it is that they're seeing that I don't see. And the risk for a lot of people in following that path is they think that they're going to lose their position. They're going to think they're going to have to change their view. And it doesn't mean that. It just means that you get to see that as well as your view, which you don't have to let go of, as well as your view, there's more to this situation that you can learn from if you're open to hearing it, to hearing more about what it looks like from this position. And when we adopt that approach, we also have this other person who might normally just not say anything because they just think, leave them to get on with it. We might even hear more from this person so that then they're willing to share their point of view because we're open to hearing it. What do you see? I see this. What do you see? Now, just that very starting statement makes it much more likely that we're going to hear, we're going to get the information from other people instead of them criticizing us for holding that view, because we're not started by criticizing them or dictating how it looks or what it is that we're looking at. We're open to hearing other people's points of view. So there we go. I could go on for a lot longer, as I often do, but I just want to leave it there with you to consider which approach are you taking to from the circle of perception, from the position on the circle of perception that you stand on. Are you taking this one where it's this is the only way of seeing it, or are you saying this is how I see it? I wonder how other people see it. So the use of I statements to start things, to acknowledge that it's just a perspective or a perception rather than the way it is, a fact. Or are we saying it's a fact? Now, I just want to emphasize, with a lot of things being discussed today in the world, we might even think that looking at statistics is something like this. But even statistics are looked at and interpreted, and the meaning of them and the implications of them are subjectively looked at, subjectively experienced, subjectively interpreted. So while the data itself may be factual, how it is then used and interpreted is also going to be different for different people, because different people are going to have different agendas about how they look into it. So just even things like that are still looked at on a circle of perception. Okay, I will shut up there. I'm going to leave you with a quote which I think is very, very apt for this kind of discussion, and it is: objectivity is the illusion that observation can be made without an observer. So often we will think we're being objective, but at the end of the day we're still observing things from our position on the circle of perception. So objectivity is the illusion that observation can be made without an observer. And that's a quote by someone called Heinz von Forster, who I'd never heard of until I found this quote. But I love it as a quote because it's so important to acknowledge. I hope you found this interesting and useful. And if you did, please like the video, please subscribe if you've not subscribed already, and please share to other people if you think that they would find it useful. Have a good day. Thanks very much for watching. Bye bye.